Brian White, Anto Finnegan, it must be exactly 20 years maybe since we talked certainly about this fantastic occasion. It's great to have the two of you back again. Does it seem like 20 years?
For me, no, it doesn't. Some of the memories that you have from that time are almost like yesterday. They're just ingrained in your memory.
Pick out one of those memories for me, Anto, just off the top of your head.
Hugh McGarrigan running around last year, plastering everybody in sun cream, so we didn't get sunburned or dehydrated. That was one that sticks in my mind just before the game.
Well, that was when you were at the sort of the training pitch. Obviously, it turned out that it was very far from a sunny day. I mean, you end up with thunder and freak weather and that, so it was unnecessary. The cream didn't go into your eyes or anything, did it?
No, we were all right. The weather probably at the end of the day turned in our favour. Jerome, because we've been so used to playing games that year through the B Championship and the Mechanic Cup, in bad weather conditions. So when the weather did turn that day, I think it benefited us more than it did Down.
Would you agree with that, Brian?
Oh yeah, there's no two ways. The weather played its part. I don't know whether it seemed to unsettle Down more than it did us, from the extremes up in that yard of absolute heat and the necessity to have, like, Hugh had the only one of us. There were 40 of us there. The only one was sun cream lotion, and they had the gale to put the suntan lotion on them, which they needed. I have to say, you could see the dehydration starting to take its toll up in the lad yard. But then coming down to Casement and going into that, and then within a very, very short period of time in the first half, the hailstones and the weather changed the whole dynamics completely. And I do think, seriously, it had a more telling effect on Down than it did on us.
We'll come to that in a minute, but let's go back a few steps, before all this, to put it into context. Antrim hadn't won a championship match since 1982 against Cavan, so there's many years of heartbreak there, and it was embarrassing at times. And you just got that tag of like another year. And Down had the previous year, 99, had been in the Ulster final, and they'd only just lost to Armagh, so they'd been in the final. And the previous year they'd beat Antrim by 4 points. Now, I know, Brian, you weren't there, but then you came in as manager in October 1999. Basically because they didn't have anybody, and they were like, Brian, would you do that? It sounded a bit like that from a story that you've already related, and they sort of brought you in for the All-Ireland B Championship. There's a lot of talk about the B Championship now, but it was around then, and so you came in and you beat Leitrim down in Carrick and Shannon, then you won another game, and so you got to the final. You ended up winning that. At that point, were you thinking championship at all the following year?
Probably more. If you're on a run of luck like we had, when we got the Carrick and Shannon, I think, Anto, you'll correct me on this, we had maybe 4 or 5 games wins in a row, and you could see by the attitude of the lads that maybe didn't happen so often previously, and we're just one games. We're likes of Limerick, no slouchers then. We were winning games and winning games well. And the system that we tried to put in place carried itself through to the final itself in December. And it wasn't a case of looking forward to the championship. I think that there seemed to be a bond growing amongst the management and the players in particular, because you had a lot of young blood coming in there, some old blood, but new to the county scene. So we blending all that, and I have to tell you, it was working fast too, and there was a lot of the guys didn't have really any objections and bought into what the likes of Anto, who had been hanging about and knew what he had to do in terms of welcoming people in who maybe hadn't been about, but were big players in the club scene. And it just seemed to marry all at one time for us, and the decision maybe to stay on was inevitable after the All-Ireland B, if you win an All-Ireland, or the county's first ever senior football championship. titles, it's hard to walk away from that. Even some people might deride it and say it's a B championship. It was our first ever senior football title.
And you won that in Casement on the 5th of December. And as Anto says, the weather wasn't great, but you won it. And Anto, you scored a point even in that game. You remember that?
I don't remember the specific point. What I do remember, Jerome, was I nearly wasn't in Carrick-on-Shannon for the first game against Leitrim. My wife was pregnant at the time with our first son, and I'd sort of made a decision at that time that I didn't think I was going to go back to the county for that year. And then Brian rang me and asked me to come along, and I remember saying to him, well, like, I'll go to the game, but I have a weekend booked for me and the missus in Sligo, so I'll go for the weekend, and then I'll head over to Carrick-on-Shannon and meet you there, and then we'll see how things go. And I'm glad that it did. You know, it turned out to be the start of a super season that lives on in the memory.
Was there any problem there explaining to the wife that you were going to nip away just for a couple of hours from Sligo to Leitrim?
No, we made it so it was on our way home. So we went to the game and then headed back to Belfast.
Ryan, I can't remember. He doesn't remember his point. It's not like he scored like 5 or 6 a game, you know?
Oh, that's Anto, the gentleman. Ever always put the other his teammates first.
And then you also brought in, as you say, young lads that you knew, like the Joe Quinns and Kevin Brady and Kevin Madden. There was young, good players coming in there. But you also had to bring in Sheeny McQuillan, who was a different sort of kettle of fish. You know, he wasn't a young guy. He'd been around for a while, but it was like he didn't maybe want to play for the county or something. Maybe there's politics involved there. So what did you do as a manager to bring him in?
Well, it's not. Shanny wasn't easy to top on anything or catching anything, but there was a whole batch of reasons, Jerome. I mean, I had worked closely with a great Antrim man, J.C. Devlin, who was from Cargan also, and we had worked with the under-21s. We knew the potential of that, and you know, I phoned him before the phone was said, look, you're going to be the key here. We need key players, and it's not your club, but the Southwest really wanting to play for the county. And I have to say, JC made that quite a lot easier. And then when Shinny came in, it was just a bonus because I was also a supporter of Antrim football. So you travelled and you watched club games, you know, and you could see a mile away. He was a massive man physically. He was one of the best midfielders of that era, but massively, he hadn't played for Antrim. You know, but I always believe that the right circumstances and conditions were created, and you could prove that this lad is the highest accolade your county can reward you, playing inter-county football, that would take place, and he would buy into it. And Santo will confirm he bought into it. Hook, line and sinker, attended the training, done what he does best at times, but he bought into where we wanted to go with the county team.
Anto, what sort of character did he bring into the dressing room? What was he like, and how did he get on with everybody?
Well, at that time, Jerome, you'll know yourself, you know, the rivalry that there was, you know, at the end of the 90s between St. Paul's and Cargan, right throughout the 90s, you know, I think through that period from 94 through to 2001, 2002, I think they met in the final, county final, probably 6 times maybe over that period. And Shinny would have been one of the key players, you know, when Peter Finn was preparing us as a team. You know, there would have been a strategy around making sure they stop Shinny in the middle of the field. Don't be giving away too many frees. So that was the caliber of the player that he was, that other managers respected him so much, you know, that they were developing game plans and strategies around stopping him. Now, had Shinny been a county player for 4 or 5 years, Down might have done the same. But he was probably a bit of an unknown quantity to them on the day, and I think that worked in our favour.
I'm sort of getting at, though, the chemistry, and as you've put the background there very nicely, but I'm imagining him coming into the dressing room, say, for the first time, would have been a bit like in the cowboy and western films, and the guy walks into the bar and everybody looks around and the place goes silent. I'm wondering how you got over that.
No, not really, because over that period, there were quite a number of players from the Cargan club who represent the county with great distinction. JC being one of them himself. So, for us, it was just another face who we felt could benefit the team. And in fairness to him, he slotted in quite nicely and brought a lot to the table.
You see, Brian's talked there a lot about how the team came together, and there was a bit of luck and whatever, but I'm wondering if we go a bit deeper in that, what exactly did Brian do? He brought the right characters in, and then there was obviously winning helps, but I interviewed boys from Antrim every year throughout the 90s and maybe even late 80s before the championship, and every year Paul McErlean or somebody would come in to the BBC and he would say, oh, we're flying this year, this is the year, and we have a new manager. There's a new manager every year, it seemed, and this is the year and we're going to do it, and we're so confident and we're flying and training, and then it'd fall on their face, so what was different in particular this year, do you think? I'll start with you there, Anto.
Probably, I think Brian's already alluded to how the season started off. We started managerless. We had some players who were probably deciding not to come back. So I think probably the expectation level at the start of that year was probably quite low. Whereas every other year the hype was around, are Antrim going to break their duck? And in fairness, those teams that came before, they weren't losing championship games by 10, 12 to 14 points. They were losing them by a couple of points here and there. So we knew we were close. But I think the expectation level at the start of that year probably wasn't as high. And maybe that worked in our favour, that there wasn't that added pressure.
And Brian, sorry, Anto. Brian, what did you think at that point? Was it, you talked about the belief, was it just a bit different that year?
Well, it was for me, but I had maybe a bit of a wider scope view on it, in that I had looked after the minors who went to 2 Ulster finals a couple of years before that. So there was talent coming through, and unfortunately, it was Mickey Hart's team that was beating them. But, we lost a match we should have lost in the semi-final of the under-21 the previous year. So we were a match for match out there, and and whatever way you look at it, normally the championships are wrapped up right about September, but here we were with an elongated championship, an opportunity to get more games, presented itself perfectly for us for just heading into the new year. You were finishing off you were starting off with some National League games, as I say, like Limerick, etc., etc. So you were getting games at the right time of the year if you wanted to build for the Rails championship. But the B championship would have been nothing if you hadn't won. It was just another Antrim team that turned up. So we saw the platform very clearly. We then realised all equally that we had the players, the right type of character, the leadership offered by Anto on and off the pitch. These were crucial elements that were coming together, Jerome, to make it, as somebody said the other day, for the perfect storm the following year. So a lot of things came together that normally mightn't have. And for a lot of other teams, they maybe didn't count for anything. But for us to go on a running spree into when we were wrapping up that first part of the season, and to win was a massive, massive thing to launch yourself into the next season. But strategically, we knew how to do it. When we had the opportunity to build.
And all you needed then was a captain. And I gather you went round the dressing room, you were asked about 7 different boys, and you ended up having to go to somebody else, some boy called Anto Finnegan. No, there's actually a really nice quote, and I think it's from you, Brian, and it's, my father used to say he had a smile that reached his eyes. That's Anto. The honesty and the humanity of the guy. He's just your normal 5'8" inches, but what a leader. Yeah.
Well, personally, it was never, as I said earlier, Jerome, I was always a fan of Antrim football, so I'd have been watching this lad, Anto, on the pitch anyway, both the club and then representing his county, and he just went through the hurt. He was a lot of his generation went through the hurt of no success and the season ending that badly. But I knew his quality. He stuck out in the line, and as a leader, a team captain, he done his talking on the pitch. But he had warm words of encouragement in the changing room and quality in the year when the players needed it. You need to work with your captain. You just don't make him go out there and toss that coin, see what way we're playing. He has to be part of what you're doing, believe in what you're doing, and then he can take that into the players. He was my main button presser.
Button presser, that's a nice way of putting it, Anto.
When it needed pressed.
I've been called many things. No, and you know, for Brian and Hugh and JC, they asked me to lead that group of players. Obviously, for me was a great honour. You know, I'd been with the county at that stage from really the end of '83. Was when PJ brought me in, him and Jerry Higgins, coming into the mechanical for the start of the '94 season. And, you know, I'd been battering away there, and I was sort of making the team and consistent, but not really breaking any delf. And that was probably why in '99 I was sort of reevaluating whether or not it was the right thing for me. Because it was, as I say, just married, new baby coming, back to university to do a master's degree, a lot going on. And then when Brian, you know, asked the question, I don't even think I hesitated, to be honest. Because no matter what county it is, no matter how successful they are, you know, playing for the counties, the epitome of where you want to be as a Gaelic footballer. And to be asked the captain on top of that was a great honour.
And then when you go into a game and you look at the matchups, Brian decided to put you on Down's oldest player, who also just happened to be Mickey Linden. Or maybe, Anto, maybe you asked for that job, did you?
No, in fairness, I didn't. I had the year before, down in the marshes, I was marking Mickey and thought I was doing okay. And then a high ball came in, and both myself and Martin Mulholland went for the ball, and neither of us got it. We sort of got in each other's way, and the ball broke in behind, and Mickey had a clear on and goal and stuck in the net. And apart from that day, I didn't think there was much in it between the two of us. So I think even from the position I was playing, I think I scored 2 or 3 points myself that day. But most of the year under Brian, I'd be playing halfback. So when he asked me to take the job of marking Mickey, I'd done quite a few man marking jobs as well for the club championship, and Ulster club championship as well. So I knew what the job was. And sometimes you just have to set your own personal ambitions aside for the good of the team. And so when Brian asked me to do the job, you know, what am I going to say no and sit on the bench? Absolutely not. So, you know, I was prepared to do that for the team.
And Brian, Mickey Linden was 37 at the time, but he was still some actor, he was still some player, so it was important to try and stop him. And, you know, Anto kept him to 1 point.
Yeah, well, Anto's performance, the whole of the season had dictated, like, we had only one man who was going to start. Somebody had the experience of equally marking Mickey previously, so, and we wouldn't expose Anto on his own. We had a wee system there that Mickey Linden, when you watch his play, was able to if he get into space, he would shoot from any angle, outside the 45 line or inside it. And we tried to reduce that. All we wanted Anto to do was boss him, control him, and we knew there would be leakages somewhere, but all we wanted him was reduce the amount of time Mickey Linden was getting on the ball, either as a distributor or a shotter. It did work. It worked for our. We can say what we see, and the history speaks for itself. That Anto captain Mickey Linden, one of the most prolific scorers, not just in Ulster and Ireland at that time, even though he was 37. I remember years later, he was playing for his club, Casement, and he was rattling points over as if he was just doing it for a bit of crack. So that testament to Anto's skill, determination, and his technique and method as a defender worked perfectly, and for the rest of the team.
You mentioned the system there. I mean, if you can tell me a wee bit about that. I mean, the individuals you had there, Anto McLaren, you had Eddie Morris in there, you had Garrod Adams, you know, you had boys in there, but tell me what you were doing with the system.
Well, the system was that effectively you drop as many people back in to the space that's not occupied by an Antrim jersey or a Down jersey, but so that they can't run into space. As a manager, you know that your enemy comes at you and lives in space. They can only run into space, they can score from space, and they utilize space to do whatever they need to do. But a lot of space is occupied. And there are bodies there. It reduces their ability to cross pass with traces, cross contaminate their players with passes that they were looking maybe trained for. And I had also the opportunity to look at Down, both in a challenge game and 2 challenge games, one up in Donegal and at Glenswilly, and one down in Downpatrick.
Sorry, slow down. A challenge match in Glenswilly. How did you end up even being allowed in the gate?
Well, to be honest, the crack was there. Declan Bonner and I were good friends. We had worked together closely for the same company. And around about the same, either Declan was before me, appointed as manager, I was after, whatever the crack was. And when I got bored, and to say the least, to give you here, guess you were playing on Saturday if you're interested. Right? So, well, up I went and watched, hid as best I could. Got caught, but that made no difference because I said, Declan, what I want you to do, rate me what you think are their weaknesses and strengths. Just do that for me, which he did do. And we put that to good use. And equally, then I had a chance to go down to watch Down in a challenge game along with Q down in Downpatrick. And again, it gave us the opportunity to see exactly where they were built, what they were doing, what they were letting, how they were letting out. That gave us the opportunity to go back and devise a system that we could curtail their potency up front.
Well, tell us now. It's 20 years later. You may as well tell us now. What did you learn? What were their weaknesses?
Well, they would try and put a lot of ball in Anto's direction, for example, through Mickey Linton, right? Or they would draw Mickey Linton out deliberately to the wing. For some, their half forwards were coming through. But we had watched this. We'll learn for that. We would try and drop as many people, you know, at the midfielder, Joe Quinn, for example, Shimmy McClellan, drop in behind, not in front, drop in behind the space, occupy the space. You know, if the ground, drop a half forward back and be a half back. That half forward then was released, and what we had to do was watch his own man, watch that, stay inside him. Small things like that, but as John Morrison called it, blanket. That's the first time I've ever seen the term. Antrim developed blanket defence.
You were there before Tyrone and then Jim McGuinness and all that. You were first. You were the one to blame.
Well, according to John Morrison.
I'll blame John Morrison then.
Yeah. So that was effectively it. And I have to say, we needed the first and foremost thing, Jerome. Play to our strengths. Believe in our strengths. Believe in the capabilities of our players. Believe in what they can do. And all we asked each man to do is win your own position. The team will come after that. And, you know, I've often said this, it wouldn't have mattered who they put in front of us in Casement Park that day. We were not losing. I'm convinced of that. It wouldn't have mattered. We were not losing.
It's interesting that you mentioned there about Mickey Linden, Anto, because he did get a lot of ball. And at one point, the commentator was saying Anto's getting roasted here. But it looked like Mickey was being effective. But when you're explaining there, Brian, a lot of ball came into him, but he didn't actually do an awful lot with it. He only scored 1 point from play. So he was dancing around and getting a lot of ball. But as you say, the system worked and the rest of the defenders came in and you were limiting that effect. Is that the way you saw it, Anto?
Well, that's the way in everything. When you go to the side of the pitch with a plan, right, you have no input of what the opposition does. So all we did was play to our strengths, what we worked at. And I have to say, like, Anto didn't. I don't think Anto got involved in much tackling, but he stood off Mickey Linton. That made him stand there, dance, make him try and go forward where he didn't want to go, and Anto was policing him, pushed him where he didn't want to go, looking for his wrong foot. We were playing to those type of strengths, you know, and then we're covering people back in so that there was no space. The enemy of any defence is space. if they get launching balls into space, let their forwards to run onto it. But that was our way to keep it. You could actually just jump forward. And at the end of the game, when the down were queuing up for opportunities to get at us, we had that many players back in the days, stopping. The wall was there, but they weren't coming through the wall. If they got through one tackle and somebody else waited, if they got through that tackle, somebody else was coming in.
Yeah, because we'll come to that. We'll go through the game, but right at the end, I think the very last block in the game, in injury time, the commentator struggled to find out who it was, and then a minute later he goes, I think that was Finnegan. You were right there at the end, Anto blocking that down. But let's go back to the start of the game, arriving at the ground. You'd been up to Lamderg and you'd got your sun cream on, and you'd come down to Casement. You're walking into Casement. As you say, not much expectation. You'd been there many years, but this time there was a belief in the squad. You'd looked at the lineups. You're coming in, and then there was Dessie Reynolds. There's a story about Dessie Reynolds that I've seen as well, that he appeared and was brought into the dressing room, which wasn't something that you'd set up to do. I mean, whose idea was that, or how did that come about, or was that received?
Well, what had happened was the lads had been out in the pitch for a bit of a walk around, whatever it was, and coming in, and just give you a flavour of Dessie Reynolds had been with me and the other selectors. When we were looking after the minors from 95, 96, 97, thereabouts, and unfortunately, Dessie, he took ill. So, and I'd been aware that he hadn't been able to get out, or whatever it was, and he wasn't quite mobile. So we were coming up the steps into Casement to get back into the change room to get ready to go on the pitch, and two old friends, Herbie Slane and Kurt Morgan, had come over and said, look, Brian, Dessie's here. Right, brilliant, he wouldn't mind talking to the team, because a lot of those young fellas in that change room were young fellas that he'd helped coach and they'd been with, etc., etc., etc. I was taken aback with this.
You were surprised, by the sounds of it, that he was even at the game. Was he that ill at the time?
Yeah, because he effectively, Anto will recall this too, he effectively got mostly blind. And obviously, so I went in and said to JC, and there was a bit of hesitation, naturally, because we had a routine to go through. We had this to do, this and that, the other do. And at the end of it, I think I just said, look, lads, sometimes it's more about football. And Dessie's an Antrim man as much as anybody. What of it? There's nothing to lose here. Let him come in and talk to the lads. And that was effectively it. It was heartbreaking, Joe, I have to say now, because I had to leave the room. The tears were flying out the other side. Especially, Dessie was no shrinking fella. He was a giant of a man, right? And to see what we give Dessie there and then and that, and I just left it to the players. I have to tell you, it shook me. My heart was pounding, and I was ready to dump walls all around. But I could tell you from the players' perspective how that was viewed,
Yeah, Anto, do you remember what he said, or maybe just even the effect of him being in the room?
Not so much what he said. I think what sort of struck me, Jerome, was I would have been a regular around Casement, just watching games and watching training and everything else, and you'd always seen Dessie around the place at games or at training sessions. And he was, as Brian said, he was big man, and what sort of struck me was, how frail and stuff he looked compared to what he was before, and that sort of resonated with me more than his words in terms of what he actually said on the day. But I just remember that afterwards, when he left the room, nobody said anything. One of the players spoke, and it was just that unspoken word that we knew that today needed to be about Dessie, and that was it.
Going on to the game then, and looking at the matchups and looking at the teams, this obviously wasn't the down team that won 2 All-Irelands, although in 91 and 94, but they still had a lot of players from that era. And they had James McCartan on the bench. Brian Burns was a late cry-off. What did you think when you saw the team? Brian James wasn't starting. He was there and did come on at half-time now, but he wasn't starting.
Well, sure, look, James McCartan will be lethal in 2 minutes as he would be in an Irish football. He needs to get the ball, and he's already lethal. James was a probably one of the best playmakers. Sometimes he got great scores, but his threat could be from what he set up. And he done that he did that immediately when he came on. But they're all the other young fellow was there. What they call him? He was a minor. Benny Coulter.
Benny Coulter played in the minor game that day.
Right.
Brought him on at halftime with James. That was the start.
Yeah, at that stage, the kitchen sink was the next thing to come on the sideline. So they were trying everything they could.
Yeah, so you were pleased when you saw them going down that route?
Well, you've got to respect teams who have gone to the level of where they are, coming from where they are, coming with a baggage of experience onto the pitch with them. Whether that baggage started on the sideline or was on the pitch at the start of the match, it was there and it could be lethal. And at the end of the match, they were all on the pitch. So, but these people are always going to be a threat, and we allowed for James McCartan because any time that he was going to be introduced or any of the other threats from the down bench, the system was there. If it worked for one, it could work for the other. They had to still break down that, as John Marshall called it, blanket. Had to break that down.
And you had boys from different counties there. You had Eddie Morris from Tyrone, and you had Con Coleman from Galway as well. So you had brought in individuals as well from wherever you could get them, basically, and you were ready for that occasion, that matchup, and you really felt you had a fighting chance for the sounds. But even though no one in your squad had ever played on a championship winning team.
Yeah, well, the first thing I'll say about Con and what do you call him, Eddie. These were two lads that were playing their club football in Antrim. Con was at university with Anthony Gallagher, so it was a matter of, and they were good footballers. And the lads are quietly and pleasantly surprised how well they took the our lads took them. Sometimes these can be unsettling. You're taking a gamble. There's people wearing the Antrim jersey maybe for a couple of years looking for that position, but it worked out perfectly at the end of the day. And Con and Eddie Ferry on that day were up for the game.
Anto, going into the game itself, you've made a perfect start. The first 10 minutes or so, you got the first point of the game after 3 minutes. Sheeny, of course, put it over. Kieran McCabe equalised, but then Joe Quinn got a point. There was another point from McQuillan. Higgins fouled Brady for that one. I've noted here, Kevin Doyle then got a point. He fisted one over. So it was 4-1 after 10 minutes. But just as important as that, there was great tackling by the Antrim defenders. You forced Shane Mulholland at one point to foul the ball. And you were playing with two full forwards. Ronan Hamill was around the midfield. So the system seemed to be working for you. Were you feeling at that time that this is good?
Yeah, we settled very quickly, which was great. And come back to Brian's point, he was saying about the system. The benefit of the system at that time, before people actually caught on, is when our players dropped back behind the ball, the down players pushed up on them. So our forwards are takers of space. You had players like Brady and Kevin Doyle who were lightning fast. Quick ball out of the defence, very quickly turned into attack. And I think Down didn't really cop onto that as quickly as they probably would have liked to, and it allowed us a fair bit of space, even with Joe Quinn running forward to score his point. He broke one or two tackles and then he had an acre of space in front of him to go forward, and that really that system worked very well at the start of the game, because I don't think Down knew how to cope with it.
And Sheeny was putting over the freeze, although I have to say when I was watching it, I even remember at the time and watching it again yesterday, it was odd that he was right-footed, taking them from the right-hand side. It was like he didn't have a left-footed free taker, and every time you're thinking, this doesn't look right, but he nearly always got it over.
Yeah, he was an exceptional kicker of the ball. And the year before, under Aidan Thornbury, I'd have been kicking those frees, but Eddie was just so confident. Sheeny was just so confident, from anywhere, that you were quite comfortable with allowing him to take a free from anywhere, because he was just so deadly accurate.
Brian, I think what Anto was trying to say is that he was delighted to be relieved of the duties of taking the frees.
Yeah, most lads are, to be honest with you. The 10-year truth, they're looking for a way out of it and get away with it. But the one thing there, just on Anto, he was there last year, but with Shelly came in, Shelly got a strength of kick and a strength of leg that we just hadn't had before for a period. And also we were denuded of the services of Kevin Madden, who was a natural free taker. We lost him in a National League game down in Mullingar against Westmeath. Dirty stroke, but anyway, it worked out, but he had a broken jaw. And so there was a lot of people stepped up to the plate. Shelly even more, because there was more pressure on him. Young Kevin Doyle unleashed an unknown talent on the down team that day, and he was sort of like a can opener. He opened them up here and there.
I was going to say to you, because I was watching it yesterday, I was going, Kevin Doyle, where did he come from? And where did he go,
Oh, listen. After the county final in 2000, there was a lot of lads went there.
But you got him from, he came in, as you said, the prize element, and he had a fantastic game. I think he scored 3 or 4 points.
Oh, listen.
And as Anto says, he ran at them.
Yeah, Kevin was a mayor with us again. One of the quality talent coming through, but maybe looking at nothing to give. And he would be perfect for senior at the county. But you had to use him as a wee secret weapon. Maybe at the start when nobody knew him. But the Kevin Brady and Kevin Madden turned up. In that area, just focusing on the forward area at the minute, like they were 3 unknown entries to any opposition.
Going back to the game then, the next portion of the game, Anto, Down came right back at you. Lyndon got a fantastic score off the outside of his right boot. That was 4-2. And then there was a chance just after it where Lyndon sort of got in behind, but he dropped it. Then there was a penalty. McMurray brought down by Eddie Morris. Good Tyrone man tackling there, cornerback Tyrone tackle, typical there. Give away a penalty. Gregory scored that, put Sean the wrong way. So that was Down ahead. So they'd gone from 4-1 down to 6-4 ahead, and Liam Doyle had a wide, and Gregory had a 45. So they were sort of right on top in that period. But then Brian, with his mystical powers, got the thunder going, and in fact, I think it was just as the 45 went over from McCartan, the commentator goes, "Oh, I can hear thunder." And this is like at the end of May, and then you had that freakish weather, but Down were still coming at you, and McGreevy made a great save after some poor defending, as the commentator said. So you were hanging on at that point and waiting for the storm, Anto?
Yeah, to be honest, there was no real panic. I don't think we panicked, which, didn't surprise me, because through the games that we played throughout that year, we had a couple of really close encounters with the likes of Westmeath down there, and we came out on top. Limerick, we come out on top. Fermanagh, in the B Championship, who had some quality footballers, Michael Johnson, Shane King, the Brewsters, and we came out on top in that game. So when Down went a couple of points ahead, we didn't panic at all. But we just wanted to make sure that come half time we were in touching distance at that stage, and we were.
Yeah, you come back from that. You hadn't scored in 15 minutes, and then the storm came, and it was a bit worrying. But Sheeny got a free. You always need the odd score to keep you in touch, and that brought it back to a point. It was a good kick, and it was way out on the far side and on the right, but it was an important score. They still got another point, Shane Ward, but then it was hailstones at that point. Peter McCann got a good point. Again, lifting the team, and Joe Quinn set up Doyle and equalised just before half time. That was a crucial period, Brian.
Yeah, and you look back at Kevin's shot, it was just a slither away from going to that post, the speed and the thrash and the power behind it. Everything just seemed to come to the rescue, the hailstones, and it did put a somewhat eerie perspective. Even we tried to play through it, it was an eerie perspective to the game that maybe wasn't there 10 minutes ago. And yeah, we were just lucky, just wanted to hold, consolidate. The likes of Kevin Doyle scored that point at the very end coming there. But these were all critical moments of keeping us well in touch, And for the first time, maybe a bit nagging off, now being able to hold the heads up.
I'm wondering then, when you go in at halftime, as you say, there's an eerie atmosphere. It's dark. It's actually dark in an afternoon in Belfast at the end of May. But there was the crowds were moving. There was something ominous in the air. You go into the dressing room, you've managed to get in, you're absolutely drenched, but you're level, importantly, you know, and it's all to play for. I'm wondering what the message was from both of you at halftime. Now, Brian, as you said, you let Anto press a button, so I'm guessing you probably spoke, Brian, and then you left the dressing room and left Anto to speak. But if you could talk me through what happened there.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. I went in and just said, lads, let a wee roar in here and there, which managers tend to do just to get noticed. But I just had said, look, lads, we should be away here. You shouldn't be in front. We should be a lot better than where we are. Disappointed to see we're not. But hey, look what you've done. Look what you stood up to. Look what you've done. We've achieved nothing. You know, we're about to start off the second journey. But here's what's going to be solved. It's not going to be solved by me wagging the finger or shit. It's going to be solved by you people sorting it out amongst yourselves, getting together, working this out. You have 5 minutes. We'll go back in 5 minutes. But you sort that out in here now. I always remember saying that. Says, Anto, you're changing him.
Over to you, Anto. What did you do with that? Did you sort it out?
To be honest, I mean, the team were still well motivated. Jerome, I focus more on our possession in the first half. I felt that we wasted quite a bit of possession in the first half, especially kicking the ball forward. I think we kicked the ball out over the sideline 4 or 5 times. Some of our shot selection wasn't, you know, what we had worked on through the weeks building up to the game. And I just said to the guys, you know, come second half, you know, think about giving the ball to someone in a better position. Make sure the ball goes to hand or close to the player, that he's an opportunity to wrap himself around it and get a free. And if you're in a scoring position, or make sure we're getting the ball in there. So if there is a foul coming, that Chini's going to stick it over. And just keep the tackling going. Because I felt our tackling in the first half was pretty good. You know, Down had an excellent free taker themselves in McCartan. You know, so we didn't want to be making it a field day for him either. So we were really focused on clean tackling, forcing them into an error, dropping the ball, and then picking up the break. And it seemed to have worked quite well in the second half.
So, Brian, then you come back into the dressing room and Anto has it all sorted for you?
There's always the wee one-to-ones you have to have with certain individuals.
Well, what do you remember about that? What one-to-ones did you have, or what did you say, or do you remember back out of Casement down the famous steps? You know.
Well, what said in the changing room, Jerome Wilson always stays in the changing room, and the one-to-ones maybe knew that there was a bigger performance out of them that maybe they were given to us, and you have a half an hour, 35 minutes to do this, turn it around. You are within touching this, but just to go back to what Anto was saying, the whole idea of the system was that, you know, once we would pull back in, and we knew we were going to get it down, we're going to come at us. Shock they may have been, thunderstorm they may have been, hailstone they may have been, but they were going to come out of that and shake themselves down. And one thing we knew, we relied on, that if we were dropping people back, then they would want to push the people forward. So that was going to congest their passing area and their shooting area, sooner us down to the ground. And we try to create those conditions. You know, and I have to say, the defence led by Antrim was magnificent that day. They stood up there very strong down a fence on the second half. But before we get onto the pitch, we knew, I can tell you that now, when the lads were walking past me, to go down that corridor, down those famous steps, to go on, win their first championship game, you just smell wind that was coming out of them, and the confidence that was walking past me and Q and JC was unbelievable. Just looked at each other, they're not going to lose. And they weren't. We just even before they get on the pitch, we were going to go up against them, down, quality team that they are. They're either going to put us under the cudgel, but we were fit enough. We knew we were fit enough to stand up. Good luck too.
Yeah, of course. But you could also sense that from the crowd. I mean, what I listened to it the other day, at halftime, the start of the second half, you could hear the roar coming up from the crowd. And it wasn't just your usual roar. It was like they really sensed blood, you know, they really sensed that they were there for the taking and this could be the day. And they got the confidence and the belief from the way the team had played in the first half. And they were like willing Antrim to just get over that line, you know, they were excited. Anto?
Well, yeah, I mean, sometimes when you're in the middle of that, you don't, you know, you're so focused on your game, on the job you have to do, making sure players around you know that they have a job to do. You don't really pick that up. But on that day in particular, I remember coming down the steps and out onto the pitch, and there was just an almighty. It wasn't even a roar. It was more like a G up. Let's go, you know, let's get at this type thing. And I think the players sensed that too. And then as the game settled down into the second half pattern, you know, as the minutes ticked by, I never had any doubt. Even when they got the second penalty, I had never any doubt that we were going to win the game.
They brought on James McCartan at halftime. They brought on Benny Coulter, and it was the first time anyone had seen Benny Coulter. When you look at the pictures of him now, he looks about 14, you know, but obviously he went on to, you know, become a star in down terms. So they brought the two of them on at halftime, which, you know, was a good sign in a way for Antrim, because it knew that you could tell that Down were in a bit of disarray. They were starting to play their main guys early. They were bringing a minor on who played in the minor game, you know. They were in a bit of bother and they knew they had to get something. But you guys started really, really well in the second half. I mean, you scored the first 4 points, I think. Down defenders picked up 4 yellow cards. And Kieran McCabe got booked as well, all in the first 15 or first quarter. And Down made more subs as well. So you guys really, you know, you got into your stride in that period. Kevin Doyle put you ahead, and then he was fouled a few minutes later. Caulfield was booked for that, and then he was even taken off. Sheeny put the free over. Sheeny got another free. Paul Higgins had a heavy tackle on Peter McCann. He got the yellow card. Sheeny then had a free that came off the post. But Coleman stood up and put it over. You were 4 up, and the crowd was on your side. It was roaring even more at this point. And I know you mightn't have been as aware of that, Anto. You were just getting on with the game, but you could tell just that what really was, Brian, it was really saffron rising. I'm wondering what it was like for you along the sideline watching that, and you know, you're still wet from the thunder and whatever, and the hailstones, and Pete McGrath's there, and you're up and down, and the crowd's behind you. Of course, when you're on that side in Casement, you hear it all behind you. What do you remember from that period?
Well, probably that period, the first 15 minutes seemed to go so very, very fast. And it was mostly around in the middle of the pitch, leaning in the back, and, you know, but the last 10, 15 minutes, hardness in the throat, because they really put the pressure on us. The curtain coming on, he had 2 or 3 runs through there, he floated a couple of ball, looking for support. And that was it. And unfortunately for me, I tried to keep balance because I was more concerned about if we get up, that I was staying in line with the defence. But our lads down at the defensive end were just playing heroically, is the best way to describe it. Just attack after attack after attack. Down launched at them. But there weren't 1 or 2 wee slips and a wee wade here and there, but that's championship. But they weren't going anywhere. They weren't going anywhere. And the more they tried to flood our forward area, the more we congested it with them. And that made it even more, which I couldn't believe, but that made it more difficult for them and easier for us because we were just marking them lesser space.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure Anto remembers. I mean, James McCartan had a goal chance where he ended up on the floor himself, but he sort of screwed it and it just went wide. And but they were hitting like a lot of high balls at that point as well. Michael Walsh, who was a minor as well, making his debut that day as well. He put a couple of like Gary Owens in towards the area, and it was just bears to the buns. You know, you were so organised in there, and McGreevy and the defenders were all just lapping that up.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing I would say, Jerome, too, was I thought, you know, when they got their second penalty, I actually, from where because I was right there and beside Sean, to me, it wasn't actually even a penalty. He just, Mickey threw the ball up to kick it, and he seemed to just lose balance, and the ball dropped, and the keeper says that someone pulled his arm. But I thought it was a very soft penalty, and I think.
To be fair, Anto, I think the replays back that up, and the commentator on the one I watched, when you watch it back, you're going, because you were on the line, you were covering the line, and Sean came out, but it definitely was. There was no foul that I could see either.
No, and I think if they had a scored from that, I think it would have been a grave injustice to us. But Sean kept his cool. Gregory hit the penalty. Probably didn't hit it as clean as he would have liked to, but Sean still had to make a save, and he was a great shot stopper. So when he made that save, that was it. Like I knew at that point that the gods were in our favour.
Really, Brian? Were you thinking the same thing in the sideline at that point?
When the penalty came up, I'm going, right, Park Asher next week. Here we go. We'll beat them. But no, I said to you, we'll have to go down there. We'll beat them down there because this is before the penalty, right? Just on the run up to it. But down there, we're going to beat them down there. We'll do it better. And next thing, of course, Sean done what he done. He done it well on the stage. So that's where it done and dusted.
Wow. And then down brought on Michael McGill, one of their 94 heroes. Or no, I think it was just before the penalty. And McGreevy was fantastic at that point. And just on McGreevy, I mean, the saves he made in the last 10 minutes were unbelievable. It was a super show by him. And there was a quote I read, he'd give up soccer to return to the Antrim cause. He was a soccer player, but he played Gaelic for Antrim for years too. And then he ended up playing when he was about 40, a long time after that. But was he one of those guys that you needed to bring in, Brian? You needed to sort of coax in?
Well, Sean was there. They're quite a fantastic loyal servant in Antrim football, and he would have been one of the ones that would have bought in pretty early on and got what we were doing and understood where we wanted to, what we were prepared to do. Just for the crack, if we can roll back a wee bit of it, I mean, it was a very important thing that we'd wanted to transfer to the players is that we will be doing things different this year. One of the things we've done differently in preparation, and I'm sure Anto can reflect better than I, we got a chap in called Harry Brennan. He was just an acting assistant coach for Ulster Rugby that headed Queen's PE. Like we just knew we needed to be different. Needed to be different, do different things, and that the players see that we were leaving no stone unturned to find out how we were going to get there. And as I say, Anto could reflect on what Harry meant to him and the type of training that he brought, the level of training, and the techniques that he brought in were on that. That was a big contributory factor. I thought that Swan, everybody bought into it, really bought into it, and enjoyed that period.
So this was a guy who didn't have a Gaelic football background, but he was bringing in probably stuff that's normal now, but back then, ladders and things like that, Anto.
Yeah, and initially when Harry started to introduce some of the equipment into the training, I have to say we had a good laugh about it at the time, and people trying to do 2 steps in the ladders and all that sort of stuff and falling over themselves. But once we got the hang of it, and we started to see the benefits as the season rolled on, people's fitness increasing, strength, stamina, players were sort of realizing, what, I'm getting the benefit from this. And then as a collective, we could see, we felt coming through the season then that we were fit enough to match any team that fit our fitness levels and our strength levels. And I think when you watch the Down game back in particular, because that's what we're talking about, our tackling in that game, the amount of dispossession that we caused Down, how quickly we were in the tackles, tackling in twos, all of that came from, that base of strength and fitness that Brian, Harry, Hugh and JC had planned for us throughout the year, and it helped to culminate in that performance on the day.
And in particular, in that last 10 minutes, when Down got closer and closer, McGill kicked a wide for them. That was their 11th wide. It was a lot. But as you say, they were under pressure. James got a point, so it was 12-1, 6 with 10 minutes to go. So it was always like about 3 or 4 in it. Sheeny got a point, and Shane Mulholland got a point. It was 3 in it again. They had a couple of shots at goal, Joe, and there was 1-2 together, and Joe Quinn blocked one with his foot, and then they shot right away, and McGreevy caught the second. And as you say, as I say, there was a goal in it, so like they were definitely going for goal at that point. And then there was another McGreevy save from Kieran McCabe in the last minute, and then there was one in injury time, which I think you, Anto, got to as well. So like when you watch it again, I mean, Brian, I can only imagine what you were going through, mate.
I think you can't get buried in the emotion of it, but you don't have time to tell you, because you're going from one situation to the next and particularly that game, every situation was very quick. You know, we were under constant pressure. The defensive line were put under massive pressure, but equally, all I wanted to do was our mantra: no fouls, no fouls. You don't tackle. See, if you see the ball, touch the ball, but don't tackle. And try and do it, and where we could, push them in on 2-on-1, and force them to kick the ball where they didn't want to kick it. That's why you're alluding to the amount of high balls, the wasted, the Molly Maguires up in the air, and just hope they land down somewhere good. That was part of what we had trained for, in forcing them into making errors, and where they wanted to go, we weren't letting them go.
It was a really nice passage by Tom O'Riordan in the Irish Independent, I think it was a day or two after, that sort of summed it up really nicely, and it was a real tribute to all of what you're saying. He said, Antrim won this game playing possibly their best football for longer than anyone can remember, probably since their last Ulster title win in 1951, which is a big statement. Every man on the field played with an inspiration and a hunger which shipped every tackle and ounce of strength that Down could muster. It was no wonder that the cheers of sheer delight echoed across the Falls Road at the sound of the final whistle, which came after Down made every effort to force an equalising goal. That they couldn't find the breakthrough was in no small way due to the heroics of keeper Sean McGreevy. The man of the match stood firm and made one brilliant save after another. Right from the opening minutes, it was obvious that Antrim had the pace, the ability and the self-belief to win. That sums it up.
It's fabulous. I wasn't aware of that, but that's a beautiful accolade to bring a bunch of guys that deserve to win that day. There's no two ways about it.
What was the final whistle like, Anto?
Sheer elation, Jerome. But there was also a couple of other things before the game, that as a group of players, that had motivated us. Kevin Madden had been, a key player for us for a couple of seasons coming up to that, and then unfortunately got his jaw broken in Westmeath. Dermy Niblock, who was part of the team early on from when we played Leitrim in the first round of the B Championship right through to the final, and then unfortunately Dermy got knocked down on the night that we were out celebrating the All-Ireland B win, and he wasn't able to play that game. And these were two players in particular who were, would have certainly been starting. I think probably, I don't know what Brian's view would be, but in my view, probably would have been starting against Down in the Championship, and they were watching from the sideline. And then the added bit about Dessie coming in before the game. So we had a lot of motivation going into that game. That as players, that it was important to us, to perform for our teammates and for those people who had supported Antrim through thick and thin, and to come out on the end of that result, there was just an outpouring of relief at the end of the game and a lot of enjoyment. But we were very quickly brought back down to earth on Tuesday night, back to training and getting ready for an Ulster semi-final.
I can see now why you were such a brilliant captain, Anto, because in the middle of all that elation. You know, you were thinking about your teammates who hadn't made the game, but you're right. I mean, it meant an awful lot to an awful lot of people. There's shots of women and children and grandfathers coming onto the pitch at the final whistle, Brian. I mean, Enda McLaren's grandfather, for example, he was crying on the pitch, you know, and it showed it wasn't just about your group, but this meant an awful lot to Antrim GAA.
Yeah, well, for me, it will always never be just a championship game. It was more than a championship game for Antrim. There was a whole lot of statements being made, intentions being set out, and ambitions being eventually lived. So that game in particular will always be remembered for a variety of reasons, you know. And one of them is we were back on the road again, and you know, we also saw our responsibility towards the wider group. There was young men in there who'll be coming through in a couple of years' time wanting to play for them. There was minor teams just out before us. All of this here, and the lads themselves had a big responsibility. They stood up to it. And it wasn't just about the team, it was about it, and it wasn't just an ordinary championship game.
Definitely not. I was going to ask you to put it in context, but I think you've maybe just done that. It was certainly one of Casement Park's greatest ever days. Hopefully there'll be more in the future, but for the old Casement, it was certainly one of the greatest ever days. But I'm wondering, for both of you, just to close, maybe starting with yourself, Anto, I mean, both of you in the last 20 years have come through a lot of adversity in your own personal lives, and I guess that sort of shows the characters that you are, and maybe that's what helped you back then as well. Bearing all that in mind, I mean, how do you put that day into context, the achievement, the fact that it was Antrim's first win in 18 years, and it put Antrim back on the map? How do you reflect on it all now?
I mean, it was a great chapter, you know, personally in my life. I'm glad I made the decision that day that I went to Carrick-on-Shannon. And what followed after was a tremendous journey. I think what that win also done was, and what was important for us a couple of seasons on, was that we didn't allow that rat to set in again. So we played Cavan in Casement 2 years later, in 2003. 3 years later, and we beat Cavan in Casement. And then roll on 2009, and we're in an Ulster final. You know, so for me, it was I would say the legacy of that win, I think, was hugely important to Antrim as a whole. But for me, I mean, even with my own struggles over the last number of years, it's the same boys that when I call to do something for our trust, it's the same people who stood with me on that day in Casement that are still standing by me now.
And they all are there for you now, and you just meet up once a year?
Yeah, well, sometimes more than once a year. Any excuse for getting out for a beer, like.
Absolutely. Not at the minute, Anto, maybe, but I know what you mean.
After. We'll enjoy it when it's over.
Yeah, there's a thing that they have at Jordanstown in the GA out there, and it's Friends for Life. And that certainly applies to you guys. But I'm going to give the last word to you, Brian. I mean, you were the manager through all of this and through all that experience. As I say, if you can put it into some sort of context for us about that day and what it has meant to you guys and to everybody else.
Well, if you think back, this whole thing's 20 years ago, which is incredible. And think back then, that was 18 years before we met or won a senior football championship. That shows you the gap, the lost generations that had came before Anto's group. It was unbelievable. Hurting, actually, this time now can allow us to reflect how bad it was, you know. So if we done anything as a group of Antrim people, and it was to say to Antrim, you can do it, this can change, we can make better things better. And as Anto had already said, you know, a couple of years later, we started with the Murphy Cup, Cavan, then going to an Ulster final. Not just, all these things didn't turn up, Jerome. For me, They were a catalyst of the beginnings of what had started in 2000 in the Chapman. The All Ireland B in the year before, in '89, and that whole way, that culture of winning had gained momentum, and it didn't stop even after the 2000 thing. It didn't stop. It carried on, and the ability to understand we can do this, and it came through. Well, for me, there's a legacy left with the 2000 squad, and some of them played on after that. It is they opened the door for the next teams to come through and let them write their own history. I thought it was fantastic what they've done.
Brilliant, lads. I'm inspired. That was brilliant. That was absolutely fantastic. It was a pleasure to listen to you two guys. It's more enjoyable now, nearly 20 years later, than I realised at the time, at the day, you know, so that maybe says it all.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
There's passion and love for Antrim.
Absolutely.